Okay, thank you all for joining us today for the many faces of Nehemiah Persoff. We hope you are doing well and staying healthy. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Rebecca Gersten. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Kavod on the Road and Kavod Senior Life. Today we are hosting our program with our HEA partner, and we are so pleased that Morty is here today, not only as a representation of HEA, but as the host for our program today. Morty, do you have any words for HEA today?
Well, we're just delighted with our continued partnership with the Kavod on the Road here at the Hebrew Educational Alliance. And I've been looking forward to this event, this program today for many months, because we have a wonderful, beautiful, special guest today who's just dear to my heart. So with Nehemiah Persoff, just for those of you, I might refer to him as Nicky to family. That's his nickname, as many of his close friends and family refer to him. So I'm just thrilled to have everyone joining us, and deep from my heart, gracious to Nehemiah. He is my cousin, and just a delight to, and just so happy and pleased that he's agreed to do this today.
Thank you. And now for some Zoom items. Nehemiah will share his presentation, and there will be an opportunity at the end to ask questions. Please post your question in the group chat or to me personally. And please remember to mute yourselves. We will be recording this program today, so it will be available in a few days. Nehemiah Persoff is an American retired actor and painter. He appeared in more than 200 television series, films, and plays in a career spanning over 50 years, beginning after World War II. Born in Jerusalem, Persoff emigrated with his family to the United States in 1929 and graduated from the Hebrew Technical Institute in 1937. After serving in the United States Army during World War II, he worked as a subway electrician, maintaining signals, while he began to pursue his acting career in the New York theater. In 1947, he was accepted into the Actors Studio and was one of the 26 members of the beginners class taught by Elia Kazan, along with James Whitmore and Julie Harris. He began his acting career in 1948. Today, we welcome Nehemiah Persoff, and our program will be hosted by our very own Morty Katovitz from HEA. And as he mentioned, he is Nehemiah's Nicky's cousin. We welcome both of you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Nicky, welcome. It's good to see you. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So Nick, how old are you?
I'm 102 and 3 and 6 months.
Kenahar, isn't that?
I saw the doctor yesterday and she gave me an appointment for 6 months from tomorrow. And I said to her, "Are you sure that you want to see?" She says, "Yes, I'll see you." And so she promised me.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, a lot of us here are, are familiar with, they hear your name and they see the face and they say, "Oh yes, Nehemiah Persoff." So I want to start off, you did recently publish your book called The Many Faces of Nehemiah Persoff, which I've read, and it's available online for those that ever want to check on Amazon and so forth. That goes about your career. It's a wonderful read about your experiences. So I want to just start off with a simple question. When did you decide that you wanted to become an actor?
Oh, my back. I'm sorry, say that again, please.
When did you decide that you wanted to become an actor?
When did I decide to become a professional actor?
Yeah.
I guess it was after the war. Actually, I was an actor all my life. Mm-hmm. Another one, please. Actually, I was an actor all of my life. When I was a child, I knew that I had certain powers. I knew that if I got angry, I could get what I wanted. And if I wanted something else, I could always do it by acting. And that stayed with me. Now, a professional actor is another matter. Because in the beginning, when I was acting as a child, I had all my kindergarten teacher to argue with me. But when I became a professional actor, it was Hollywood. Watch out.
And you didn't just start in Hollywood, you started in New York, is that correct?
Say that again.
You didn't start out in Hollywood, you started in New York in the theater. Is
That's
that
right, on Broadway.
Yeah, where did you start? You were at the Actor Studio with Aleichem and other colleagues. How did that come about to?
Oh, that was after the Army.
Mhm.
I went to summer stock, and the director didn't know what play to do with me because I was hard to cast. He thought a worker, a laborer, this or that. And finally, he decided on a classic play by George Bernard Shaw, The Devil's Disciple. And it was very unusual for me to do an Englishman. But I did it, and I got good reviews, and I came to New York and heard about the Actors Studio being, that Aleichem was auditioning actors for the Actors Studio. So I went there, and the Kazan said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to do The Devil's Disciple." He said, "What?" I said, "Richard Dudgeon in The Devil's Disciple." He said, "All right, go ahead." And I did it. And at the end, he said to me, "Thank you, I'll let you know." And I knew what that was. That's the end.
Mhm.
But 3 days later, I got a card from the studio. They asked me to come to the first session at Labor Stage. I got there and I didn't look around. I didn't want anybody to see me. But I sat down, and next to me was a kid that was called Marlon Brando. And next to him was John Garfield and people who are legends. And oh, wow, that was really something. Then Kazan came on and he said, "I've chosen you guys because you guys are the cream of the crop. I've chosen you to be in my studio because I don't want to have I don't want to have to teach actors how to act. I want to teach you in the studio, and then when we can work together, we'll do okay." Well, that was over, and I went down the street. I was 20 feet high, and that was the Actors. It was a great place. Couldn't find a better place.
A lot of people
There
came
wasn't
out
an
of
actor in New York or Hollywood that did not want to be in that studio.
Very much so. Very much
Marty,
so.
Marty,
Yes.
can I interrupt for a moment and just ask, perhaps you can take the screen down so we can see
sure.
Nehemiah full screen?
Yeah, I'm going to take the screen down and
Thank you.
stop sharing. And now,
Oh, wow.
there we go. Much better.
Thank you.
That was just the intro. So I'm just going to go bounce around here. Were there any actors or directors that you especially enjoyed working with?
Were there actors who are especially what?
That you especially enjoyed working with that really come to mind?
Well, it was great to work with studio actors because we had a kind of a common language. With other actors, it could work out great. I tell in my book, I tell working with various actors, it's okay, but especially studio actors, they spoke the same language that I did.
Mhm.
So sometimes with a nod, you can talk to each other, understand each other quickly.
Mhm.
And also you know each other, so you know each other's weakness.
Mhm.
You know what makes you laugh, you know what makes you angry, and you can play on each other, and that's acting.
What about directors? Any particular well-known directors that were the best to work with? That
The directors, I liked working with Kazan because Kazan had a way of looking inside you and knowing what makes you tick. For example, when I worked with him on Waterfront, I didn't know anything about the role. It was a taxi driver. But before the close-up on me, Kazan stuck his head in there and he said, "Steiger killed your mother." Wow, that riled me up. And that's all I needed. So that was a good director. The rest of the directors I worked with, I always preferred a director who would just have confidence in me and let me go, for God's sakes. Don't do it for me. Don't tell me too much about it. I know the character. I'll do it. That was it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I had a lot of those.
And then you're referring to Steiger, that's Rod Steiger, is that correct?
Say that again?
That was Rod Steiger. That
Rod Steiger, yes, yes. He was a good friend of mine, actually. He was responsible for getting me from stage to screen
mhm.
when he recommended me for a role in The Harder They Fall with Humphrey Bogart.
With Humphrey Bogart. See, yeah, wow. This is just a treasure trove of well, famous classic Hollywood and stage actors. And out of so many roles that you've performed, which is your favorite and
Take
why?
that, please.
Out of the many roles, I mean, you've had many roles, you know, from across the platforms of the arts, it's, you know, visual
Yes.
art. Are there any roles that are your favorite, and why would those be your favorite roles?
Well, you know the musical, in which the character sings, "When I'm not near the girl I love the girl that's near."
That Finian's Rainbow, was that Finian's Rainbow?
Finian's Rainbow, yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
So whatever role I had, that was my favorite. Then when it was over, it all depended on how the audience took it. For instance, Some Like It Hot paid back so much. And Yentl and other things like that paid back. But the effort and the love that I had for each role was the same. Each one, yes.
Mhm. Some Like It Hot, I'm sure many of us remember that, you know, whenever it's on TCM or on TV, it's like, oh, I get to turn in and see that you worked with, who was it with that film? That
In
was,
Some Like It Hot?
yeah, tell us.
Well, it was really a solo show for me. It was, I
Mhm.
just came on and did my speech.
Mhm,
But I knew Tony Curtis, he went to school with me.
mhm.
And I knew
Jack
the other
Lemmon?
guy.
Jack
Yeah,
Lemmon?
yeah, yeah. But as I told you, in that filming, I was on by myself.
Mhm. And also Marilyn Monroe as well.
Marilyn Monroe did not appear with me.
Oh, you didn't, no, you never had,
No, not in my scene.
not in your scene. So you didn't have a chance to see her, or talk, to work with her in that.
No, I met her at various parties at Lee Strasberg's,
Mhm.
but I never really made an effort to contact her, and she never made an effort. So we just nodded. We had a nodding relationship.
And how was Billy Wilder as a director?
Let me tell you how I got the role first, okay?
Okay.
I had a director once, Charles Lederer, who knew everybody in Hollywood. One day he was playing cards with Billy Wilder, and Billy Wilder said, "That son of a gun, that Eddie Robinson, he was supposed to do the movie with me," and he walked out. And Charlie said, "No problem, get Nehemiah Persoff." He said, "Who?" "Nehemiah Persoff." I never heard of him. I said, "Well, get it." No, play cards, play. No, I'm not playing cards, just here's the phone. He brought the phone over. He has the same agent you have, call him and ask for that. All right, so he picked up the phone and he called the agent and he said, "Do you know an actor by the name of, what's his name?" And Charlie said, "Nehemiah." And before he could say the name, the agent, "You mean Nicky?" "Yeah, sure, he'd be great in the role." And that was it. And he went and talked with Tony Curtis, and Tony Curtis said he'd be fantastic. So I came in, and no rehearsal. There were gangsters all around me, as you remember. And I looked around and got to my place, and one of the extras said, I heard him say, "Who the hell is this guy? I thought that Eddie Robinson was supposed to do this." And I turned around and I said, "You know Edward G. Robinson?" He says, "No, I don't." "So you want him to do the role?" said, no, I said, okay, get this guy out of here. And I got so angry. I got the assistant director to get him out of there. And Billy Wilder said, hurry up, get out of there. You're insulting my actor. And that helped me a great deal because that put me in the position of being the commander of these gangsters.
The gangsters, yeah, that role is just very iconic when you're just very tough in that and you're giving that speech. Who else? John Garfield was in that film too, wasn't he?
Who was?
John Garfield, wasn't he one of the?
No.
He wasn't in that, or George
Let me
Raft.
continue what I was saying.
Oh.
Sammy Davis Jr. was a great fan of mine.
Mhm.
He used to come often when I worked in Vegas, places like that. He'd come to see me shooting every time. They were shooting Porgy and Bess next door. He and Sidney Poitier and Dorothy Dandridge. They closed down their set and came in to see my work. And Billy Wilder, when he saw them come in, began to tell jokes because he was on. Ha 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 ha. And then Sammy everybody told jokes, and I was standing there. For God's sakes, shut up already. I want to do my role. But they kept going and going on. And the stage was just fuzzing, just crinkling with laughter. And I was serious about my role. Then I began to do my role when Billy called the action. And what was on screen was not what I wanted to do and not what Billy wanted exactly, but a combination of my anger and the jokes that he took. It was, if you study the scene carefully, you'll find that there's a lot of real anger and a lot of real jokes, hamming. And that's how it happened. It doesn't always happen the same, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a role? Well, you don't want to talk about being a Jewish actor.
Pardon?
I want to talk about being a Jewish actor and playing Jewish roles.
Okay, sure.
How important was that? Or has that ever been to you, playing Jewish roles? Because I don't feel like you've ever really been typecast at all.
Let me tell you about Jewish actors.
Mm-hmm.
Jewish actors are the same as Goyish actors. Each of us brings to our work the family that we came from. Mm-hmm. If you come from a family of European Jews, then you know if they speak Yiddish, then you know certain things. For instance, my father was from Ukraine, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Sad place. And my mother was 5th generation Israeli. And she sang Hebrew songs. My father sang Russian songs, Jewish songs. I remember his singing, As the Rebbe geht, as the Rebbe steht, stehen alle Chassidim lach, stehen alle Chassidim lach, and so.
I love that.
So my life has been enriched by that. So it depends on how far, if the character you're playing is Jewish, but he's American, he's really no different. Look at the guy who's the judge that's about to resign. He's Jewish, I think, isn't he? The judge, the Supreme Court judge.
Breyer.
Yes. And he's a judge. He's an American judge, but he's Jewish. So it all depends on what relationship and how much influence your parents had on you. Mm-hmm. And you go from there. It's no problem. I had friends, Italian friends. One of them taught me, "Oh, mamma mia, come savone, I macarone. Oh, mamma mia, come savone, I macarone, a pomodoro." He got that from his father. We were all enriched by the culture of our parents. So if you say, how do I play a Jew? I played a Jew, a guy whose parents are Jewish, from the old country preferably. That's it. It's really close and easy.
And you've played other cultural roles, other ethnic roles, so not necessarily just Jewish roles, but Italian,
Russian,
German.
I played a Chinese Englishman in Wild West.
Oh. That was the TV show, is that right?
Yes, it
I
was.
love that show. Also with John Wayne and the Comancheros, am I not mistaken?
That's right. That John Wayne the
And
Comancheros.
what was your role in
There I
that?
played an Indian chief, an American Indian chief.
Right.
And,
That
that was great. I loved John Wayne, a wonderful cutie.
Yeah. I just recall as a child, Gilligan's Island. I think you played the one role on
Yes,
Gilligan's Island
one role, Gilligan's Island, yes.
as the
I
South
had a
American
director
despot.
there, talking about directors,
Mhm.
who the moment that I did my very first appearance, when they threw the gun and I said, I got angry, he started laughing. He did not stop laughing through the entire show. And that was the direction, the best direction I could get for that. Because I'd never gotten such a wild part. It was crazy. But
Right. I was thinking of other roles that you've had. Yeah, you've played a lot of ethnic roles, gangster roles. But you never really felt you've been typecast at all. I don't think that
I
was ever the
don't
case.
think that I was typecast. I'm very fortunate early in my career in the actor's studio when I started. All the actors used to run to the bulletin board at the end of the session to see what their agent had to call them about.
Mhm.
And I got nothing until one day I got a card from Monique James, who was a wonderful agent. And somehow she sensed that I could play characters all over, any character, whether it's this, that. And she used to send me these roles. And I didn't think I could do them, but I did them because she sent me. And she is the one that's responsible for my knowing that I can do any part that I wanted to.
Mhm.
I could do it.
Yeah. Yentl, can we talk about
Yentl.
that? I think a lot of people here remember that film. It's just it stands on its own in so many ways, as artistically. I think also the first Barbra Streisand directed. I think it was the first time she ever got the major studio gave a woman the privilege to direct her own film and such. Tell us a little about that, because it's so memorable and there's so many songs that we remember that we think about.
When I was told that I had the role, I was involved with another show. So I didn't have to really have time to think of it until I was on the plane. And I tried to get into the role and I just could not contact her. I just could not make contact with Yentl. I was very unhappy about that. But then about a day before we filmed, she invited me to her house for tea. And we sat across the table and she started telling me that her father left her when she was very young, how tough it was on her, how when she started singing, she had to go all the way from Brooklyn to New York and so on and so on. And she said, oh, okay, we've talked enough, let's do it. And I got on the script and I said, Yentl, and suddenly I began to tear. And she said, good, very good, very good. Now, what happened was on the way home, who's that walking behind you? On the way home, I thought about how I did it and what happened. And I thought to myself, my goodness, when she talked to me about her father, she wasn't just telling me tales, she was directing me. And that's the best kind of direction you can have, where you don't even know that the director is directing you. She never had to say anything after that. It was really a joy working with her. She was a perfectionist.
Very much. Yeah.
At the awards for her, she invited me to speak and I did. And at the end of a long, serious, emotional speech, really, I said, Yentl, you've been like a real daughter to me for 20 years or so. You never call, you never write. And that broke down, and she laughed. She
I think I remember that. I think that was the American Film Institute.
yeah,
honor.
that's right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
I remember that, those televised,
yes,
remarkable.
yes.
And you've played other Jewish roles. We had a friend, who was our friend? He was the producer in San Francisco. We had the theater. You know, who I'm talking about?
Let me tell you an interesting story about a Jewish role.
Sure.
I had a friend, Leo Penn. He's Sean Penn's father.
Mhm.
He invited me to Hawaii to do the role of a rabbi without auditioning, and at that time I never auditioned anyway.
Mhm.
And I did it so good that the producer came to me towards the end of the show. I had a scene in a graveyard with a Torah, and he didn't know what the rules would be with the Torah. He said to me, Nikki, please help us out. I don't know about this. Could you just do it the way you feel it? And I improvised that entire scene. Then I went home to LA, and in LA, I got a call from the agent. He said, there's a young director who wants to audition you for the role of a moil. A moil is a circumcised.
Mhm.
He says, what is one? I just came back from playing a rabbi without an audition. What is it? He said, look, you're getting old now. You're 70, and they don't know whether you can remember, whether you can do this, that. I said, okay. So I put on my rabbi suit and I put on a rabbi hat, and I got there. And when I got there, the first thing this jerk said, Mr. Persoff, do you always dress like that? I said, no, only when I have a job to do. What kind of job do you do? I'm a moil. You're a moil? He turned to the casting director. Did you know that Mr. Persoff was a moil? She said, no, I did not. He said, is the script okay? I said, yeah. It's okay. It's not that. No, the director, the writer came to me, he said, please do me a favor, tell me, I'm not going to be hurt. I want you to tell me whether it's a good script or not. I said, I could tell you that, don't worry about it. It's good. And I got the role. I went home and picked up the phone to my agent. My first thing the agent said was, Nikki, you never cease to amaze me. I never knew you were a moil. Oh, I forgot to tell you that the director before that, I told him, he said, how did you learn to be a moil? And I said to him, you know, my father was an actor in Jerusalem. And just like here, an actor does not always make enough money to live on. So he used to moil on the side, and sometimes he'd take me with him, and I used to watch and see, and I knew how to moil. He said, wow, you knew how to moil? Yes, I said, I'd practice at home once in a while. I'd take a cucumber and work on that and that. He said, that's fantastic, okay. So then after that, I decided that all through the show, I'm gonna pretend that I'm the moil, a real moil. And after my scene was over, I'd go and sit at a chair with a Bible, and I daven, and they all gave me a wide berth. None of them came very close to me. At the end of the show, one of the lawyers, the leading roles, said to me, you know, my wife and I just had a child about 2 months ago. She's here now with the baby. Would you do me a favor and give him a blessing? I said, sure. So he gave me the little baby, and I said, and I forced a tear out of my eye, and I said, oh, so it's so wonderful to have a baby in my arms again. And he took the baby and gave it to his wife, and he said, here you are, darling. And she started crying. She said, thank you, Rabbi, I'm so happy. That's the role.
That's wonderful. And you also played Shalom Aleichem, I believe. Is that correct? You had
What?
You had your one-man show as Shalom Aleichem. Is that right?
Shalom Aleichem, yes.
Yeah.
I was in New York to do a Naked City, and my agent said, what's his name? The choreographer of the show, Bill Prince. No, not Bill Prince, but whoever it was, wants to audition you for the role of Tevye for the road company. I said, okay. And I went there and I got the first soliloquy, then I sang a song. And he said, fine, fine. There's a part I'd like you to try, and that's the second part where he comes in drunk from L'chaim at the well. Would you work on that for me? I said, sure. And I went and worked all week. And on Friday, I called my agent. I said, I haven't heard from them. He said, well, Luther Adler was supposed to do the role. And they had an argument about money. And finally they agreed, and he's going to do the role. And I was terribly disappointed because I loved it. What a great show. What a great show. On the way to the airport, in the airport, I went to a bookstore and there was a little book with stories by Shalom Aleichem. I took it on a plane and I read the stories and I thought, you don't need music, you don't need dancing, you don't need anything. You just need somebody to stand up there and simply tell these wonderful stories. And I decided right then that I would do a one-man show. I worked on it for about 8 months, got a director after that, and spent money buying renting a theater. I remember driving to the theater on the freeway, and I said, what a jerk you are. What makes you think that people would pay money to come to see you read words of a foreign Jewish, I don't know. I got to the theater, I was so nervous. Before I knew it, the show was over. We had thrown a party at a delicatessen around the corner. All of the critics stayed till about 3 o'clock. I won the LA Critics Award for that year. And then I went to San Francisco and I did it for 3 months. When I got home, a few weeks later, the producer of the show called me. He said, Nikki, we want to come here because you were nominated for Shalom Aleichem. And you might get the role, get the award. I said, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I'll be hearing a lot of people speak. And then I have to sit there and say, bravo, bravo, when they get the, he said, don't worry, Nikki. Your show was the only show nominated. Wow. I went there and I won the best actor and best show of the year. That was a show that had Elephant Man and various good shows. Wow. So that then somebody from Australia saw it. They took me to Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide. And it was a great show. I enjoyed it so much. It's on YouTube, by the way, if you want to see it. Just
wow.
Nehemiah Persoff, Shalom Aleichem, and you've got it. Yeah.
We'll have to share that with our group to let them see that. That's marvelous. I want to, real quick, before we got started, I said, you look like Einstein today. You mentioned that you had met Albert Einstein at one time.
Yes, I did. I was a guide at the Palestine Pavilion in 1938 or 19. I'm drawing a blank, excuse me. At 102, I'm allowed. Yeah. It was the first opening day of the at Flushing Meadows in New York. And suddenly a man and his wife came over. He's hair like that. And he was standing there with his wife. The guards were keeping people away. And he stood there for a while. This was in a room called the Hall of Culture, which showed rooms in which schoolboys, children, had a formula on the board, on the blackboard. X plus 3 equals 5. X equals 2. Einstein walked in and he walked over to the wall, looked at the paint, looked at the photograph, and he looked, and he looked, and he looked, and he looked. And then he walked away, and then he came back and he said, that's right. And I started laughing, and he was laughing too. And I realized later on, after I was going to do a one-man show on Einstein, that he was a putter. He loved to put people on. You know that photograph of him with his tongue out like that?
Uh-huh.
You know that? Yeah. He loved to put people on. And he was putting me on. What an honor to have Einstein go out of his way to put me on. Anyway, it was great. Then Eddie Cantor came in with a bunch of people. And it started raining while they were there. And at least, oh my God, it's raining. How long is it going to be, Mr. Cantor? And he said, I don't know, but here's Nehemiah. He saw my name here. He'll tell us. He knows. He's got a contact with, So he said, Mr. Persoff, how long, Nehemiah, how long is this going to rain? I said, 3 minutes. 3 minutes to the dot, the rain stopped. And they all looked at me. Unbelievable.
Wow. Well, so I want to move on to just a few more things, and then we'll be able to get into for others. By the way, just to remind our participants, if you have any questions, we're going to open it up about the last 10 minutes of our
Sure.
today. So if you have any questions, just type it in the chat room, and we'll get to them as many as we can. So don't be shy. You decided to stay in the United States instead of returning to Israel in 1948. What was that decision? What moved you to stay as acting here as opposed to?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the end. What?
You stayed, kept your career going and stayed in the United States after 1948. What was your reasons for not emigrating or repatriating to Israel?
What was the reason for what?
Instead of moving back to Israel, staying in the
United
US.
States.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'd like to tell you about Jerusalem, where I was born. Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem, inside the walls, has an aura about it. In Hebrew, it's called Shekhinah, an aura of holiness about it. You can't escape it, whether you're religious or not, you can't escape it. So I was a child born in that time to a mother who was 5th generation Israeli, so I'm 6th generation Israeli. And I was exposed to that, and I was exposed to the Muzin, the Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, when they call the people to pray. And also I was exposed to the new Chalutzim, immigrants, young people who were inspired by Theodore Herzl's speech about Zionism. And they came, it was right after the Russian Revolution. And I got to know them, and they were on fire. They wanted to rebuild the country, and they wanted to rebuild the entire Jewish nation. Because the Jewish nation, when they were in exile, they had no way of knowing where they'll be tomorrow. So they would buy a push cart or something like that. They became a nation of sellers, buyer and sellers. And one of the aims of the Jews who came was to change that and to have the Jewish people be workers and carpenters and electricians and street cleaners and garbage collectors, and everything they were supposed, and we sang songs about it, labor, avodah. And I, as a boy, had all of these things in my head. And I was determined that when I grew up, I would be a worker, because there's nothing as important as being a worker. And so it was when I went to America. My father, by the way, was sent to America by a school where he was a teacher called Betzalel, an art school in Jerusalem. He was sent here because Betzalel had developed a style of art that began to catch on. And they sent him here to get interest in that particular kind of art. My father was not a salesman. He was an artist. A few weeks after he came, they fired him. They got somebody else to do it. But he thought, as long as I'm here, I think I might as well get the family over and have them get some of the culture, get the feeling of having been outside of the tiny state of Israel, Jerusalem, and Palestine. So we came, and I came here at age of 10, full of ideals. I met the Jewish boys on the streets, and they knew nothing about the glory of the Jewish people. They knew nothing about the glory of the Bible, of anything Jewish. All they knew was they had to make some money so they can eat their bread and so on and so on. I had no respect for them at all. Around election day, it was customary to build a little bonfire in the street on election day. So 2 weeks before, we went to the stores and brought all kinds of wooden crates to the street, and we put them up on a factory we had at the end of the street. And on Tuesday, election day, we brought the wood down and started a fire. The Italian gang from around the street came by and started taking the wood away from us. And I looked around for the tough guys, Moishi and Aimi and all of these guys, and they were on the steps ready to run up to their house. I went over to the head of the gang there and I said, you got no right to take this. Is out. He said, what? Before I knew what he was doing, a fist went into my eye and I got my first black eye in America. I looked around at my friends and they were not there to be called on. And so I went to my house and my mother was very calm. She bandaged me, put water on it, so forth, so forth, so on. And you'll have to excuse me for a moment. I lost my thought because I was talking about the yeah. So then I was not popular with the boys either. I didn't like them and they didn't like me. My uncle had a pushcart stable across the way from the house, and I used to help him push the pushcarts from the market to the stable. He'd give me 25 cents an hour. I'd give that to my mother, of course. It was during the beginning of the terrible depression. And then I always save one dime for myself for Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I'd go to the Fox Folly, which was a movie house with vaudeville, 5 acts of vaudeville. I'd go there at 10 o'clock in the morning and sit there and watch the show 3 times until 7 o'clock at night. I'd go home and my family was happy to see me because they knew that every time I came home, I would tell them the story of the movie. My father was a great movie fan and so on. So we had a good time. The following morning, I would do the same show for the kids on the stoop. All the kids on my block, with the gang on my block, the Russian gang, the Polish gang, the black gang, everybody used to come and listen to me. And I knew enough then that the nuances that I told my family were not going to work with these kids. So I used to jazz it up a little bit. And I used to see if they were not so interested, I'd bring in a murder or a drowning or something to jazz it up, jazz it up. So I became quite popular with them. They began to call me the actor. After a while, I was had to choose between a high school, academic school, or a trade school. And I said, of course, I'm going to trade school. No academic for me, a worker. I went to the trade school, and every time, let's say we were doing carpentry, I would measure and measure and measure and measure and then cut, and it was too small every time. The other kids were through with their projects already when I was still cutting. I knew that I was not a worker. In the English class, the English teacher was a very smart man. He understood. He gave me a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven. And I read it to the class, and then I read at another occasion, The Ancient Mariner, and I dramatized it for them. And I began known in the school as Persoff the actor. When I got through with that school, I got a job as an electrician and I made $3 a week, which the boss sometimes had it, sometimes not. And I saw in the paper an advertisement for the job of assistant signal maintenance man in the New York subway. I applied for that, I passed it, and I got a job in the subway. The job in the subway was interesting because it was just a maintenance job. We would go out and work for 2 hours, and then the rest of the night we'd sit and either go to sleep or talk to each other. The guys who were in the subway then were very different from the people in New York because they had come from railroads all over the country. They were rural. They were country boys. They were not from New York. Different for me, it was very strange. And I started hearing their jokes and stories, and I put a show together that I used to do at parties. When I'd go to a party, I'd start telling the story of these guys. A woman came to me one day and said, "You know, you're not a subway man. You should go to acting school. I have a friend who was secretary at the New Theater League." I said, no, I don't. But inside I was dying to do it. The next day I went to the school with her, and they gave me a scholarship because I put up a light at the end of the hall, and they gave me a scholarship. In class, I began to improvise. I was very good at improvisation, and I told a story about a Brooklyn guy that I knew, a guy by the name of Kibbe, who was a Dodger fan and so on. At the end, when I did, the teacher, who happened to be a Broadway director, came to me and said, "Who writes your material?" I said, "Nobody. This was a real guy in Brooklyn." Said, 4 months later, I was in the subway working on a stop, and up on the platform, a man calls down, "Hey, Nicky, what the hell are you doing down there?" I look up, it's Lem Ward, the director. He said, "Do you want a job in a Broadway show?" I said, "Sure." So he said, "Come down tomorrow." And I went tomorrow. I got the job. I shook hands with a lot of movie people that I know. One of the things they taught me at the New Theater League, which was terrible, and I'll say this, the New Theater League was a left-wing school that was tied in with Moscow. And Stanislavski was a Moscow man, and he developed this improvisations. Instead of using the real words, the teacher told me that the actors improvised for 8 months before they even looked at the text. These actors from Hollywood, they all knew their lines already, and I came on, I didn't know my lines. And I took my time. I wanted to improvise. And after a while, I had to decide whether to go to New Haven with the show or to stay with the subway, because I could not do both jobs. I couldn't decide, so Maxwell Anderson, the writer, came to me, put his arms around me. And he said, "You're a great actor, we love you," and so on.
So I got one more question, Nicky. I don't know because I want to.
Are we running out of time?
Well, yeah. One last question, and then if anyone has questions, we're going to open it up.
Okay.
What is your key?
I'll tell you the end of this story at another show.
Okay. What is your key to living a full, long life?
Laugh a lot. What do I know? I live from day to day. I might die tomorrow. I don't know. I may die in 5 years. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe 2 years.
As we say, 220.
Yeah.
So I want to open up. We have a few minutes left for any people who have questions. You can type it in the chat room. We just want to go ahead and open it up, or you can talk. So if anyone wants to ask a question, even go ahead and unmute yourself. Are you okay with that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I actually have one in the chat for you.
Oh, okay. I don't see it here.
It's to me privately.
Okay, go ahead.
So Nehemiah, we have a question. Have you ever worked with the Selwyn brothers, Edgar or Arch?
What did she say?
Did you ever work with the Selwyn brothers, Edgar or Arch?
The Solomon brothers?
Selwyn. Does that ring a bell?
No, I don't think so.
Edwin or Arch Selwyn?
Sorry.
Okay.
That's okay. We had somebody who wanted to know.
Mhm.
Any other questions? And go ahead and put them in chat or unmute yourself and
Who's got a
ask.
question here?
It's a little difficult for me to hear. Would you repeat her question, please?
Who else has a question? Because I can keep moving. Anybody else in our group want to ask any questions at all? All right, so I got another one. Aside from acting, what are your major interests or passions that you're doing today?
Okay. How much time do we have?
We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay. When I was about 70 years old, the phone suddenly stopped ringing. And I thought, well, I was so successful in my one-man show, I'll do another one. So I picked up a show and I worked on it for 9 months again and got the theater, rented the theater and and worked on it really hard. The theater was 600 seats, excuse me. 600 seat house. On preview night, 11 people came. That was a shock to me. I went to have dinner with my director, and while I was talking to him, I started being unable to form my letters or words. I could not. He slapped me around a little bit, and then I started talking again. And I had a very good friend who was my personal doctor. It was 11:30 at night. I called him and I told him what happened. And he said, drop everything, come on home. That night, I left everything there. I went home. And the next day, he took me to a specialist. And the specialist said that I have to quit acting, that the pressure was too great on me. So I said, well, you know, I live, he said, leave Los Angeles. I said, I live on a full acre with a swimming pool and I have a fine place. He said, no, leave. It so happened that a friend of mine came up here to where I am now, the central coast of California. He invited me to come visit him, and my wife, Tia, and I, we came up and went for a walk down this very street. And there was a sign on this building for sale. And he said, would you like to look at this house? I said, no. He said, I'm interested, come on up. We went up and we stood right next to the door looking at the ocean. There's an ocean right not far from here. And I looked at Tia, my wife, and she looked at me, and we just knew that we would buy this house. We knew nothing about the house. We knew nothing about the neighborhood. We have a theater here. We have all kinds of activities. Nothing about the weather. It turned out to be the best thing I could do. The first day I was here, I met a guy by the name of Art Van Ryn, a wonderful actor. And he said to me, why don't you come and paint with us on Wednesday night? We have a group called the Wednesday Irregulars. You can come or not, it's irregular. I said, I don't paint. He said, that's right, we have beginners, we have experts. So I went that day and we chose a place to paint on mountaintop. I had just a pad with the paper. And it was so amazing to see the mountaintop after talking quiet down, and the concentration, you can cut it with a knife. And at the end, at lunchtime, we all went to have lunch and critique. And on these 40 or 30 blank canvases, suddenly we saw creation of some wonderful paintings. And that just set me on fire. I began to paint in my garage. I painted till about 2, 3 in the morning. I turned out hundreds of paintings. One day there was a show here in town and somebody said, why don't you put a painting up for sale? I said, what? I'm not painting for sale. I'm not a painter. I'm not painting for sale. Put this up. So I put it up for $75 and it sold. And I lost my virginity.
I want to say,
began to paint for money.
And I have we have one of your beautiful paintings, the landscape piece that you gave in our
Say
home.
that again.
We have one of your paintings gracing our home very much. I think
Great,
it's
great,
lovely.
great.
And just we've got about 6 minutes left. We did get a question about working with Marlon Brando. Did you find it difficult working with him since he was a method actor? How was it working with Brando?
This is a very complicated question, and it'll take me a long time to answer it. It has to do with the difference that I have with the method.
Mhm.
One thing that they talk about, and that is emotional memory. In other words, if you're doing a scene and you're not really in tune with the emotional quality of that scene, they say, look in your background, find something happens close to it. And when you do, the emotion will come, and then bring it onto the stage and do it. Even though I was not educated in the method, I refused to do that because I felt that when I act, I want to act with the person that I'm talking to. I want to act what the author has written in the play. I don't want to bring in another thing into it, an event that I had 20, 30 years ago, and bring it here. So when Brando came to do the on the waterfront, he said to Kazan, I'm not ready to do my close-up. Kazan said, that's all right, go to your room, get ready. When you're ready, come on out. Rod Steiger got all peed off. He said to Kazan, if I came to you and I said, I'm not ready to do a close-up, would you tell me to go to my room? Kazan said, no. And Steiger said, why not? And he said, because you are Rod Steiger and he is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando went into his room, came out, and what did he do in his room? He must have refreshed his memory of what he was using. And he did that. I could have been a contender scene.
Mhm.
How many people watching that movie remember that his brother pulled out a gun and pointed it at him as he started saying, I could have been a contender? He disregarded the gun altogether. And that's the big argument that I have with the emotion memory.
The
It's
amazing
very
things.
rare. Now, there's some actors, Meryl Streep, all of these others, they're very good, and they probably use it. They use it well. But even with Brando sitting there, I noticed that he was not acting with Rod. And Rod, because of that, was not acting with him. He was doing his back thing. I could have been somebody. I could have been. It was a hit. One day I had dinner with Kazan in Toronto. I was doing a movie there. He was there advertising his play. When he asked me, did you think that this scene would be such a big hit? I said, no. He says, neither did I, but I was working on it. I said, let it go, print it. So I went into a very deep thing about this, the method, which I shouldn't have gone into maybe because it's a very special thing for actors to understand this. And I'm not sure that I'm right about this, but my point of view is that each actor does it his own way.
Mhm.
In my book, I write about Charles Lawton, in which he talks about doing one way and he does it another way completely. But that's too complicated. I don't want to go into that.
Very good. Well, we're getting up to the hour. I guess one last question, really short answer for this. What are your thoughts of the industry today?
My thoughts about what?
The industry today, the acting film industry
The
today
acting.
in particular.
You know, I got a bunch of CDs from LA.
Yep.
They do that every Oscar season.
Mhm, mhm.
And this year, I've stayed away from it completely. The few films that I've seen were terrible, absolutely terrible. And I just don't want to see them.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, last night, I had a friend of mine came to watch it. she recommended a play. I won't tell you what the show is. And I hated it. And she liked it because politically the actress was supposed to be a communist, but at the end they got her off the hook. And I said, it's not that easy. And we had a big battle about that. And she went away pissed off. So I said, I'm not, who needs to watch the films? I want to be friends with people. I really am. I'm in a different world. First of all, at 102, I don't concentrate as well as other people. So I'm not really giving the people a break, giving them a chance to do what they can do. But the things that I do see are not good. Not good. Sorry. Sorry.
It's a different generation. Well, Nikki, we're up at the top of the hour. I want to just thank you again with all my love. Sherry's here, my sister. So Sherry, you can say hi.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. Well, we love you very much. I know it's a little personal for those viewing.
Bye-bye. I hope to see you soon.
I hope to see you soon. And thank you so much for everyone who's joined us. I do want to, Rebecca, I'm going to break a little rule there. If you're interested, Nikki has published his book, The Many Faces of Nehemiah Persoff, of Nehemiah, excuse me. You can Google it, and it's a very wonderful, short, wonderful, easy read about his career and his life. And may, like I said, ad mehr v'esrim to 120 to 120. Sei gesund, good health. And as I sang at your 100th birthday party, to life, l'chaim. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for
thank you.
The precious gift of
and
your
thank
time.
you, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Morty, for introducing us to you, Nehemiah, Nikki Persoff. This has been a treat. We love your stories. We love you. And thank you all for joining us today. And may we be able to do this again sometime soon.